Night does not simply fall over Ireland. It descends, heavy, cold, ancient, on lonely country roads, where the moon hides behind drifting clouds, where the fog curls like ghostly fingers between the hills. The people of old Ireland would whisper one warning: if you hear the hooves, run, for the rider comes tonight. They speak of a being both feared and revered, a figure who carries death not as a metaphor, but as a duty. This is the legend of the Dullahan, Ireland's terrifying Headless Horseman. Tonight, we're going to travel into the deep roots of Celtic mythology, uncover forgotten rituals, and follow the trail of one of Europe's most chilling, supernatural beings. Stay close, stay in the light. For once the Dullahan calls your name, there is no turning back. The Dullahan is unlike any other spirit in Irish folklore. He does not wander aimlessly. He does not haunt random places. He appears with purpose, because where he stops, someone dies. Witnesses throughout centuries describe him the same way: a rider in a cloak black as ravens, a massive stallion covered in mist and smoke, and in the rider's right hand, not a sword, not a lantern, but his own severed head. That head is said to glow faintly, like rotting candles inside a skull. Its face is stretched into a permanent, grotesque smile, as if death itself finds amusement in its duty. The eyes don't blink, they don't rest. They swivel like burning coals, searching the darkness for living souls. Some say the Dullahan lifts his head high above his shoulders to see over forests, walls, homes. Nothing can hide from his gaze. And when the headless rider finally speaks, he utters only one word, the name of the person whose life ends that night. To understand the Dullahan, we must step far back into a time before books, before kingdoms. When Celtic tribes ruled Ireland and their gods demanded offerings darker than we can imagine. Many scholars believe the Dullahan originated from Crom Dubh, a shadowy, ancient deity known as Crom the Black. This god, according to lore, required one particular sacrifice: decapitation. Every harvest season, it was said that a chosen life was offered to ensure prosperity for the tribe. Blood spilled into the soil, heads buried beneath sacred stones. But when Christianity spread across the island, these rituals were abolished, altars destroyed, idols smashed, sacrifices forbidden. Yet legends say the god did not simply fade away. Enraged at losing his tribute of blood and fear, Crom Dubh transformed into a dark spirit, condemned to roam the night in search of the souls he once claimed. And so the Dullahan was born, the last echo of a forgotten pagan god still riding through Ireland's mist-covered paths. For centuries, the Dullahan existed only in whispered stories. Families told it by firelight. Children learned it through warnings. Travelers feared night roads because of it. It wasn't until the 19th century that the legend was formally written down by collectors like Thomas Crofton Croker and later the famous poet William Butler Yeats. Even the Brothers Grimm, famous for European ghost tales, translated Irish accounts of the Headless Rider. From here, the Dullahan galloped beyond Ireland's borders and entered global folklore. But no matter how far the story spread, the Dullahan always remained distinctly Irish, a figure shaped by Celtic roots, pagan shadows, and the haunting beauty of a land steeped in myth. Some versions of the legend describe not just the rider, but his terrifying vehicle, the Coiste Bodhar, the death coach, a black, ghostly carriage drawn by 6 horses, whose hooves strike sparks on stone but make no sound on earth. No gate can stay shut when the coach approaches. Locks spring open, doors swing wide, iron bends like wax. Inside lies a coffin, perfectly sized for the next soul, The Dullahan has been sent to collect. The rider halts the coach, lifts his head, speaks the chosen name, and fate is sealed. This isn't a negotiation. This isn't a warning. This is the final summons. The Dullahan has no tolerance for curiosity. Looking upon him is considered a grave offense. Witnesses claim he lashes out, using a whip crafted from a human spine, a weapon cold enough to blind or paralyze those struck. Others say he throws buckets of blood onto anyone foolish enough to stare. Once marked, the victim cannot escape their destiny. In all stories, one rule is clear: do not watch him, do not follow him, do not speak his name aloud at night, for the Dullahan is not a creature to entertain. He is death on horseback. For generations, the people of rural Ireland treated the Dullahan as more than a legend. To them, he was as real as the storms that battered their coasts. Parents forbade children from looking out windows at night. Travelers avoided crossroads and lonely paths. Doors were locked at the slightest sound of hooves. But strangely, there was one thing the Dullahan could not withstand: gold, even the smallest piece. Not silver, not iron, not fire, only gold. One tale tells of a man who dropped a golden pin while being chased at night. The Dullahan shrieked in rage and vanished into smoke. Because of stories like this, villagers carried gold coins or trinkets as protective charms, not for wealth, but for survival. One of the most enduring accounts of the Dullahan comes from County Clare in the late 1800s. A servant at Ennistimon Castle awoke at midnight to the sound of an invisible coach approaching the gates. He knew the legends. He knew the rules. He opened the gates, but turned his face away, letting the phantom coach pass without looking. The horses galloped through the archway. The carriage vanished into nothing. The next morning, news arrived that the castle's master had died suddenly. Miles away from home, the servant lived because he obeyed the ancient warnings. The Dullahan had only come to deliver the message. Why does a creature like the Dullahan survive through centuries? Folklorists point to two powerful themes. One, death as a messenger. In old communities, death was feared but expected. A figure like the Dullahan gave shape to the unknown. It transformed fear into story, a way for families to understand the inevitability of loss. 2. Pagan memory. The Dullahan may be a lingering echo of ancient sacrificial rituals. Dark memories passed down long after their original meaning vanished. Over time, these influences blended into a single, unforgettable figure, a spirit whose existence reminds us how myths evolve, survive, and continue to shadow our modern lives. Ireland isn't the only place with headless riders. Germany, Scandinavia, and the American colonies all have versions of ghostly horsemen. Washington Irving's Sleepy Hollow story likely drew inspiration from the Dullahan. The Irish brought the legend with them as they emigrated to the New World. But only Ireland's version carries: the golden weakness, the banshee connection, the decapitated god, origin the death coach. These elements form a distinctive identity that sets the Dullahan apart from all other headless spirits. Today, few claim to have seen the Dullahan. Electric lights, busy roads, and modern life have pushed him to the edges of memory. But the legend isn't dead. You'll find him in fantasy novels, video games, horror films, Halloween lore, Irish tourism, and ghost tours. And in rural Ireland, late at night, when the wind cuts through the grass and the road is silent. Some still whisper his name with caution, because myths don't die, they adapt. And the Dullahan, the headless rider of Ireland, continues to gallop across imagination as fiercely as he ever did on ancient roads. Tonight, when you leave this video, take one moment to picture a quiet road among the Irish hills, the moon dim behind clouds, the wind colder than it should be, the world unusually still, and imagine hearing, just once, the distant echo of hooves in the dark. Would you look? Would you dare? Or would you remember the old warning? When the Dullahan rides, keep your eyes shut and your gold close. For legends like this never truly vanish. They live on in the stories we tell and in the shadows we fear.